You won't believe this, but I lived with something that wasn't human, and I didn't realize it until it was too late. At first, it seemed normal. The apartment was quiet. The hum of the fridge, the creak of the floorboards at night, the occasional laugh over a TV show. But there were moments, tiny, almost laughable things that didn't add up. I ignored them. I always ignored them. It started with the way they moved. Not like a person. Smooth, deliberate, like water flowing over rocks, and yet wrong. Too precise. Too quiet. Then there were the eyes. They looked at me sometimes, not like they were seeing me, but like they were reading me, like I was a page they'd already memorized. I told myself I was imagining it. I laughed it off with friends. My roommate's a little weird, that's all. But I know better now. I wish I could go back to the days when all I had to worry about was dirty dishes and late rent, because now I know the truth. Most days, life was painfully ordinary. I'd wake up to the blaring alarm, spill coffee on my shirt, and rush through traffic to work, while my roommate, let's call them Alex, was already gone, leaving behind a perfectly clean kitchen and the faintest trace of something like cinnamon. Or maybe it was just my imagination. On weekends, we'd binge shows or play games, and they were always pleasant company. Polite, funny in a dry, unsettling way, never spilling a word more than necessary. But there were little things, odd habits I didn't notice at first. Alex never ate at normal times, sometimes skipping meals entirely, sometimes eating as if they hadn't touched food for days. The laughter that didn't quite reach their eyes. The way they could appear in the kitchen from nowhere, even when I was sure the front door hadn't opened. I chalked it up to quirks, an introverted streak, maybe insomnia. One night, I came home later than usual, expecting the apartment to be empty. The lights were off, and I swear I heard soft humming from the bathroom. I peeked and Alex wasn't there. Just the mirror reflecting the dim hallway. I laughed nervously, muttering about my overactive imagination, and went to bed. I didn't know it then, but moments like that were breadcrumbs. Little glimpses of a reality I wasn't ready to see. Tiny cracks in the facade of normal life that hinted at something lurking beneath. And of course, I ignored them, because it was easier to believe in the mundane than the horrifying truth that was waiting right under my roof. It was a Thursday evening. I had just settled onto the couch with a bowl of popcorn, ready to drown out the day's stress in some mindless sitcom. Alex was in the kitchen, or at least, I thought they were. The clatter of dishes was faint, almost too soft to be real. Then, suddenly silence. I called out, "Hey, you grabbing a snack too?" No answer. I shrugged and turned my attention back to the screen, telling myself they were probably just lost in their own world. But then I noticed the mug I had left on the counter, a bright blue one with a chip on the rim, was gone. I could have sworn I left it there 5 minutes ago. "Did you move this?" I asked, voice sharper than intended. Nothing, just the quiet hum of the refrigerator and the faint tapping of rain against the window. I got up, scanning the kitchen. The mug was nowhere, no dishes in the sink, no cabinets open, nothing. I laughed nervously. Okay, weird, but maybe I moved it myself? I muttered, trying to convince myself. My hands trembled slightly, but I forced a shrug and returned to the couch. Then I heard it, a soft, almost imperceptible breathing from the corner of the room. My pulse jumped. I spun around, empty, just shadows stretching across the floor, bending oddly in the lamplight. I shook my head, muttering, "It's nothing. Just stress." I sank back into the couch, but the unease didn't leave. That night, I couldn't sleep properly. My mind kept replaying the mug, the breathing, the silence. I told myself I was imagining it. I had to. Because if I didn't, I might never feel safe in my own apartment again. Over the next few weeks, little things began to pile up. Small inconsistencies that I had once brushed off like dust on a shelf. Alex never seemed to keep a schedule. Sometimes they'd leave at sunrise and come back at midnight, and no matter what I asked, the explanations never made sense. I had errands, they'd say, with that calm, too even tone that somehow made me want to nod and drop it. They had friends, or so I thought, but I never saw them. And every vague mention seemed to evaporate when I tried to pin down details. "Oh, just a few old college friends," Alex would say, eyes glinting in a way that didn't match the story. Something about it felt off. Then there were the quirks, harmless enough on the surface. They could recite long passages from books we didn't own, perfectly, word for word, and sometimes hummed tunes that didn't exist anywhere I'd ever heard. I joked to myself, okay, maybe they're a human Wikipedia. But the unease was creeping in, subtle as the smell of rain in the air before a storm. Curiosity got the better of me one night. I shouldn't have, but I looked up some of the odd behavior patterns I'd noticed. Nothing came up. Not a single explanation that made sense in this world. The sinking feeling in my stomach twisted tighter, but I laughed it off as paranoia. Then came the sound. A soft scuttling in the walls behind the couch, something too deliberate to be rodents. I froze, staring at the corner of the living room where shadows pooled. A strange metallic tang lingered in the air, faint but undeniable. I called out Alex's name, voice tight. Silence. I wanted to believe it was nothing. I forced myself to stand, pretending to search for the source. And in that instant, I knew there was more to Alex than I could comprehend, more than I should ever try to understand. It happened on a Tuesday night. I had just returned from work, exhausted and expecting the usual quiet apartment. The lights were dim, the hum of the fridge like a low heartbeat in the kitchen. I dropped my bag by the door and called out, "Alex? You home?" No response. I shrugged and moved toward the living room, but then I saw a shadow in the corner, elongated, writhing unnaturally, and yet unmistakably Alex. They weren't moving like a human should. Limbs bent at angles that made my stomach lurch, movements liquid yet impossibly precise. I froze, every instinct screaming to run, but my feet felt glued to the floor. The smell hit me first, acrid, metallic, like copper and decay. My throat tightened. I tried to scream, but all that came out was a strangled whisper. "Alex, what are you?" No answer, just the soft, wet sound of shifting shapes against the carpet. Those eyes glimmered in the lamplight, unblinking, studying me. They tilted their head, a motion both intelligent and alien, as if evaluating whether I was a threat or prey. I stumbled backward, heart hammering. The mug from a week ago clinked as it slid across the counter, though no one had touched it. I looked again at Alex, and for a terrifying moment, the outline of their form seemed to ripple, skin and bone merging into something that defied logic. I whispered to myself, if only I had noticed sooner. If only I had listened to that feeling. My hands shook as I tried to rationalize. Maybe it was some elaborate prank, some illusion I didn't understand. Maybe I was losing my mind. But the sounds, the soft, wet, predatory shuffling, told me the truth. I wasn't imagining it. I couldn't be. Alex was. Something else. Something I couldn't name, and certainly couldn't confront. I backed into the bedroom, closing the door as quietly as possible. My body trembled, my mind racing. I pressed myself against the wall, trying to steady my breathing. Part of me wanted to peek through the crack, to see if they would come, but another part screamed to stay hidden, to pretend nothing had changed. The soft, wet sound moved closer, a slow, deliberate stalking through the apartment. My safe home, the place where I had once laughed and relaxed, was no longer mine. I was trapped with a predator disguised in human form, and I knew, in that moment, that hiding was the only chance I had. I spent the next few days obsessively retracing every moment, every oddity I had brushed off. I started with the mundane checking phone records, retracing Alex's movements, looking for patterns in their absence, but nothing fit any human logic. It was like trying to piece together a puzzle with missing pieces, the corners of reality bending around them. I couldn't resist looking online. I know I shouldn't have, I almost wish I hadn't, but I typed every weird behavior, every detail that didn't make sense. Roommate disappears for days. Humanoid movement impossible. Eyes that don't see. Nothing. Or maybe something. Obscure forums hinting at creatures that imitate humans. Entries so fragmented and paranoid, they could have been dismissed, but the dread in my gut told me they were relevant. Neighbors were no help. A few had vague memories. Oh, that one? Never seen them much. Quiet type. Quiet type. Just like the entries I'd found. I kept a list of every missing or odd occurrence in the building. The sort of little disappearances everyone forgets, but that start to look like a pattern. I began noticing the apartment differently. 2. Shadows that didn't match the furniture. Floors creaking in sequences that made no sense. The metallic tang lingered everywhere Alex had been, faint but undeniable. I felt guilty for not noticing sooner, for laughing off every little anomaly. Have any of you seen this? I found myself typing on forums, desperate for anyone to confirm what I feared. No one responded. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. Every sound, every shift of light made me flinch. I tried to rationalize maybe it was stress, isolation, paranoia, but deep down I knew better. The rational mind could only stretch so far before it snapped under the weight of what I was learning. And then it hit me. The soft, wet scraping from the hallway, too close. My own breath caught in my chest as the realization solidified. I was not just uncovering secrets, I was exposing myself to danger. They knew I was onto them. And in that moment, I understood something I hadn't fully grasped before. Hiding, investigating, surviving, they were all entwined, and my every step could be watched. I thought I was safe. I really did. I had barricaded the bedroom door, shoved chairs against it, and whispered to myself that I had finally bought some time. But the soft, wet scuttling didn't stop. It got closer. I grabbed my backpack, tossing in my laptop, my wallet, anything I could carry. My hands shook so badly, I dropped my keys twice. Brilliant, I muttered. Absolute genius. Dark humor or sheer panic, I couldn't tell anymore. The bedroom door shuddered. A low, unholy groan vibrated through the walls. I pressed myself flat against the floor, listening. The metallic, coppery smell was stronger now, filling the room. I had never been so aware of my own heartbeat. Then I saw movement in the crack under the door. A shadow slithered, impossible and fluid, stretching toward me. My stomach dropped. I grabbed a chair, shoved it into the doorframe. It held for a second. Just a second. I bolted for the window, but the blinds tangled around my legs. I tore them free, jumped down to the fire escape, scraping my knees, lungs burning. The city outside felt impossibly far. My apartment, once a home, now a trap. And then I heard it behind me, Alex. Not quite human, not quite what they'd ever been in my memories. The sound of them moving liquid, predatory, echoed in the stairwell. I ran faster, ignoring the pain in my legs, my backpack swinging against my side. Halfway down, I glanced back. There they were. No, not them. Something that looked like them, but stretched, rippling, a shadow masquerading as flesh. I tried to scream, but nothing came out. The metallic smell hit me again, clinging, suffocating. I reached the street, lungs gasping, heart hammering, thinking I'd made it. And then a hand long, impossibly thin brushed my shoulder. My stomach lurched. I froze. I thought I was safe, I whispered to myself. I wasn't. And that's when I realized the world outside might not be safer than inside. I stumbled into the alley, chest heaving, blood pounding in my ears. The city felt impossibly quiet, like it was holding its breath. And then I saw it. Alex, or what they had truly been all along. The skin shimmered unnaturally, like oil on water. Limbs twisted and reformed mid-motion. A choreography of angles no human body could achieve. Their eyes huge, glimmering black orbs, pulsed with a cold intelligence that made my stomach seize. I tried to speak, but my voice cracked. What are you? A sound neither voice nor growl, something between thought and vibration filled my skull. It was a language I could feel more than hear. I staggered back, realizing this wasn't a person, never had been. Everything I had laughed at, joked about, tolerated, was a lie crafted to lull me into ignorance. I remembered the small things, the perfect timing, the uncanny memory, the sudden disappearances. Every detail now made sense, like stepping into a puzzle where the pieces were teeth. I had been living with a predator, a creature beyond comprehension, and I had missed all the warning signs. The metallic smell intensified, clinging to my hair and clothes. A low, wet shift in the shadows made my heart stop. The world seemed to bend around it. The walls of the alley warped in impossible angles. My rational mind screamed it couldn't be real, but every instinct told me otherwise. I stumbled backward, hitting a dumpster. My hands scraped the metal, leaving trails of blood, and I saw Alex, or that form, tilt its head, studying me with a patience that was terrifying. If only you had noticed sooner, I whispered, voice trembling. But it wasn't regret alone. It was understanding the depth of my own helplessness. They advanced, gliding, reshaping, unbound by gravity or flesh. And then I realized I might never escape. Not because I wasn't fast enough, not because I wasn't clever enough, but because nothing in the world had ever been designed to contain them. I backed toward the street, eyes scanning for any possible salvation. There was none. My apartment, my sanctuary, my home, it had been a cage. Every laugh, every mundane night, every shared meal, all of it a prelude to this revelation. I thought of you, watching this story unfold. I wish I could warn you properly, but by the time you notice the signs, it might already be too late. The thing I lived with Alex doesn't care about human rules. And now, I understand, with horrifying clarity, that I never truly lived alongside them. I merely survived briefly inside their world. And somewhere, in the shadows that stretch across walls you think are solid, they wait. Just like they waited for me. If you're hearing this, I survived. Somehow. But surviving isn't the same as being safe. I can't tell you where Alex is now, and maybe I shouldn't. There are stories, whispers, cases in this city, and maybe beyond, that follow the same pattern. People dismiss them. I almost wish I had too. Have you noticed anything strange in your own apartments? Odd shadows, inexplicable sounds, or roommates who just seem off? Don't ignore it. Learn from my mistakes. Ask questions. Share what you see. Because the moment you think you're safe, you might already be too late. I wish I could say this was over. I wish I could laugh about it like I used to. But shadows move, eyes watch, and creatures like Alex don't follow the rules. Remember, the most ordinary people, your friends, your neighbors, the quiet roommate, can be the ones you never truly see. And if you wake up tonight feeling like someone or something is just a little too close, maybe they are. Maybe they are.